Hello everyone, I'm making this video to talk about the latest expansion of Star Wars: The Old Republic. So, where shall we begin? Let me say first that the expansion is pretty good. I walked into it with zero expectations. To be honest, I wasn't a big fan of the previous one. I liked the initial 9 chapters, but then the following chapters were a bit worse, and these 9 are, in my opinion, even better than the original 9 of the previous one. So overall, if you played through the previous expansion, this one is definitely worth it. I think it's better. Okay, so we'll talk about the story and the gameplay, I suppose. So let's start with the story, the positives and the negatives. Now, first and foremost, they dropped the whole Destiny subplot. Even to the point where in the previous expansion, you meet the Scions towards the end of the initial 9 chapters, and they assure you how they will return when the time is right, something like that. No Scions show up. I had actually completely forgotten about the Scions until that point where that guy, what was his name? Indo, yeah. At one point there's a dark side choice where you tell him that he should have known something, and he says, what am I, a freaking Scion? And I was like, oh yeah, the Scions were a thing. But they never show up, and the whole Destiny subplot is almost entirely dropped. So I appreciated that. Another thing I liked is that almost everything wraps up with this expansion. It is a real ending, a real conclusion. And moreover, they really take into account the choices that you've made. There are so many characters that can die. Like, I should probably make a video compilation at some point of all the characters dying in this expansion. If you play Darkseid, you'll have a field day. Like, you can kill half the cast of the characters. And with each and every one, it makes sense. It's strong and emotional. Koth was really good, and it's revealed also that there was something between him and Lana. I'm still yet to do the one where I am romancing Lana. I'll be doing that in a few days, but that is interesting. Also, the Torian and Vet ones are really strong, especially if you're romancing one of the two. It's a bit of a Vermeer situation from Mass Effect. They did borrow quite a few things, or rather, quite a few things in this expansion reminded me of other bits from other games. Like, obviously, the Vermeer situation with Ashley and Caden, you get almost the exact same one with Vet and Torian. Also, when Valen died, the Eternal Fleet is revealed to be kind of like the Scourge in World of Warcraft, where there must always be a Lich King. There always have to be a guy sitting on the Eternal Throne to control the fleet. There was the mission on Nathema, very, very similar to Jack's loyalty mission from Mass Effect 2. There were a couple of things that I was worried that they're going to do, but they didn't do them, which I was very glad to see. Now, one was that I thought they may try to make Valkorion turn out to be the good guy or something like that in the end, which I'm glad it didn't happen. And the other thing, I'm glad that Valen was not redeemable. Now, I guess she could have been redeemed somewhere in the beginning, but throughout the whole expansion, she is doing stuff that is 10 times as horrible as what she has done in the past, in the previous one. So, towards the last chapters, I was like, please don't make her redeemable. It won't make any sense. At this point, she has gone way too far, and we cannot redeem her. And what's more, even her spirit, Force Ghost or whatever that is, that you see in your mind at the very end, that Arkan is controlling, even that is crazy. I loved the Darkseid ending where Arkan and Valen join you to fight Valkorion, and Valkorion's like, the Outlander killed your mom, join me, and Arkan doesn't join him, but Valen starts having second thoughts about it, and she's like, you killed my mother, you denied me the pleasure of murdering her myself. And there's an option where you can tell her, don't worry, I made sure she suffered a lot. And to that she replies, oh really? I think I'm starting to like you. And that was awesome. So yeah, the story is definitely worth it. Lightside and Darkseid are both great, different enough to where you definitely want to try them playing both of them. If you've enjoyed previous expansions or previous content in the Old Republic, you will like this. Okay, so let's talk about negatives for the story. There aren't many. There were, for example, in chapter 1, there are bits where Senya is singing, which I think these were meant to be emotional scenes, but didn't really work. And I think problem is with the sound design. While she's singing, there's like background music that doesn't go well with what she's saying, what she's singing, and the singing itself is, it's kind of weird. It's not really a song. It's kind of in between song and speech. And I thought that could have been more emotional than it was. Also, in the chapter where Scorpio dies, she tells you that she wants to merge with Iokath and whether you allow it or not. And if you say no, you kill her, and while you're killing her, she tries to go to the console. She reaches with her hand towards the console, but she is unable to reach that slot with her hand connector thingy. Now, two problems with that. The conversation, if you look closely, I'll try to show this in the video, you start the conversation with Scorpio when she's right next to the console. And then at the end of the conversation, she is 2 steps away from the console and is unable to reach it. So that's one. And two, which is even worse, is that during the previous conversation, she was connected there for a while and she was doing something. I can't remember. Was she like disabling the shield or something? I'm not exactly sure what she was doing, but she was connected. So if she really wanted to merge with the world, upload herself, why didn't she upload then? Why did she have to disconnect, take a few steps away, and then ask you, hey, can I connect again, or do you want to kill me first? So yeah, that choice is a bit, but it was still good. You know, I didn't mind. It was when I was editing the video that I noticed these things, actually. And probably the other negative that some people have noticed as well, and I immediately noticed, is at the very end. Some people have called it Deus Ex Machina or whatever. It's where you use Valen's code word, Valen's conditioning phrase on Valkorion. And it works. How does it work? The explanation is basically, you're all in my mind, so I'm in control. Now, I did feel a bit weird when this happened, but here are 2 arguments that I can think of in defense of that, and why it isn't such a big deal. The first argument is that this is really taking place in your mind, and it's a very... The whole thing is very, how should I call it, very high fantasy, very, very magical, lacking any rational explanation. I mean, Valkorion's powers of how is he in your mind? How is he stopping time? What's exactly happening during the ending? How are these people showing up? Who knows, right? But initially, it seems like you are out of control. You don't have control over your own mind because you don't know where you are, you don't know what's happening, you're talking to yourself, and you even look like Valkorion, you don't even look like yourself. And then slowly as you go on, you recover memories, you turn back into your original form. And I think that the fact the phrase works could be a sign that you have regained full control over your mind or something like that. So that's one. And two, which is probably even more significant for me, is that at that point when this happens, you already feel like you have won. Right before this moment, you turn back to your original self, you face Valkorion, you face Valen, who is under his control, you defeat her, you release her from his control, then you manage to persuade her to join you, then you fight Valkorion in the gameplay section, and you defeat him. So at that point, it feels like you've outsmarted him, you've broken his hold on Valen and partially on yourself, he's beaten. I didn't feel like I want any further scenes that show other ways of me defeating him or overpowering him in some way. So I agree that something that I think made more sense would have been better, but it just didn't bother me much because I felt like it was already over. The placement of the scene matters. If that was the first thing that happens, if as soon as you meet Valkorion you just say the phrase and he drops dead, then I would have been outraged. But now, not so much. That's all I can think of as far as negatives for the story. Now, the fact that no companions returned, that is something that many people have complained about, and it's a valid complaint. I mean, I've been the Alliance commander for so long, and Kira Carson has never thought of looking me up or something? No, it feels weird. She could have also provided valuable insight on how to deal with Valkorion, probably. Same with Lord Scourge. And if Jason was back, we could have the duel of the crazies. But oh well. Now let's talk about the gameplay. That is obviously the worst part of the expansion. There's a clear difference in terms of quality between gameplay and story. At least for me, I was very hyped during the story and very bored during the gameplay. I appreciate the introduction of some vehicles, which were refreshing and were some of the best parts. There are 2 walkers, I think. They look the same, but they're different. There is the giant droid. And what else is there? There's the little one, what's it called? Mouse droid, I think. And these were good. The walker sections were probably a bit long, but at least they were different. The rest is just wave after wave after wave of the same generic enemies that do nothing special. When there are not too many, it's not that big of a problem, but there were some chapters, notably the one where you're crashing the party, where it was literally the worst. If there were cheats in the game, I would have used some of it. First off, you had to run around a lot initially, especially if you want to do it without using the cheats or the hints. You have to run around that castle a lot. And finally, when you've found everything, you manage to access all the stuff that you have to access to plant all the charges. And you see the awesome cutscene where Valen is walking around and Arkan attacks her and they start fighting. And it cuts back to gameplay and now you have to go find them and join the fight. And you're like, oh my god, it's gonna be awesome. From that point on, till the point where you actually find them, you have to run around the entire castle again and fight a bajillion of mobs on the way. And it's just the worst feeling. I'm like, can we please get on with it and just get to the cutscene? And that's not good for a game, ultimately. You know, the gameplay has to be enjoyable. And the experience overall is not very homogeneous. It's sort of up and down, gameplay story. At least that's how it was for me. And especially on a second playthrough or a third playthrough, it arguably gets even worse. Surprisingly, the final boss fight was a bit refreshing, especially if you went light side and did not keep Valkorian's father into the Datacron or Holocron or whatever. If you keep him, he becomes your companion and it's easy as hell. If you don't, you have to be alone. It's still not, I wouldn't necessarily call it hard or very hard, but it's a bit challenging. It's like 100 times more challenging than just sitting and pressing buttons and your healing companion out-healing any damage you take. I actually died once. If you don't know, here's what happened to me. Don't let it happen to you. The AoE, of which you have to run away, that Valen does, you have to run because it knocks you back and it does a lot of damage. But it also knocks back the healing mist. And there was just one mist. I was low on HP and I was like, you know what, I'll just wait for the AoE to finish and then I'll go pick it up. But she did the AoE and knocked it out in the abyss. And so I died. So take your healing mist in time. Don't let Valen knock it away. But yeah, that was slightly challenging. There were actually people in the chat saying, hey, how do we beat Valen? And I'm like, oh, look, that's at least something that I appreciate. So the final boss fight, so to speak, was not a disappointment. As for the end game, you know, the, what are they called? Uprisings and stuff, the new Galactic Command system. Well, I haven't played it much. I did only one uprising, but it also contains other... It's kind of like daily quests in a way, where you get bonus rewards from different things. It's not bad, I guess. It's better than what we had before. I can't help but feel that the game becomes less and less of an MMO and more like a single-player RPG with co-op elements. But anyway, the Galactic Command, it's a progression system that does encourage you to play the game more. You get rewards every time you rank up. They can be rather small, like companion gifts, or they can be gear, which in all cases that I got gear, it was always an upgrade, so I don't exactly know how it scales. Is it like World of Warcraft's World Quests? But it is something like that, and it's encouraging. If you enjoy playing the game, it will more likely than not give you additional reasons to play it. My case is a bit weird. I like the expansion, and I feel like I want to play the game, but when I start playing it, I feel like I want to play World of Warcraft. It's just, I don't like the gameplay all that much. I just prefer WoWs. In here, there's this feeling of having way too many abilities without any real significance to them. It also feels like I need add-ons more than I need them in WoW, but I can't get them here. So maybe when I level up other characters that I enjoy more, I will get to play them. But, you know, the Jedi Sentinel, not really. So yeah, I think I've rambled long enough. Overall thoughts, very good. Best expansion. Best piece of content that we've received all at once since the launch of the game. I definitely recommend it. Go ahead and subscribe, at least for a month. Try it out. Preferably start from the previous expansion, not straight from this one. And share your thoughts. Tell me what you think about it. I think I know most of you like it. Some people don't, but you know, we have different tastes. So that was it. Thank you very much for watching this video and all of the other videos that I've been posting. I'll keep posting more till there is something interesting to share. And until then, stay tuned and be good.